The December wind cut through Chicago like a blade as Robert Harrison stood on his daughter's porch in the Lincoln Park neighborhood. At 62 years old, his graying hair caught snowflakes that melted almost instantly. Through the frosted window, he could see the warm glow of Christmas lights reflecting off polished hardwood floors. He had driven 4 hours from his small apartment in Springfield, Illinois, with a trunk full of carefully wrapped presents and a heart full of hope. This would be the year things got better. This would be the year Emily finally forgave him. The door opened, and there she stood. Emily, 34 years old, wearing an expensive cashmere sweater that Robert knew he could never afford. Her expression hardened the moment she saw him. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Emily, sweetheart, it's Christmas Eve." You thought wrong." Her voice was ice. "I told you on the phone last week. We're having Christmas with Derek's family this year." Robert's hands trembled slightly as he held up a shopping bag. "I brought gifts for the kids. For little Sophie and Marcus. I haven't seen them in 8 months, Emily. They're my grandchildren." "And whose fault is that?" Emily crossed her arms, blocking the doorway. Behind her, Robert could hear children's laughter and the murmur of adult conversation. Derek's parents were already there, he realized, living the family moment he'd dreamed about. "Emily, please. I know I wasn't perfect. I know I made mistakes when you were growing up. But I'm trying. I've been trying for years now." If you're watching this and you've ever felt rejected by someone you love, leave a like on this video. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring more real stories like this to you. ***. Emily's eyes flashed with old anger. "Mistakes? Dad, you missed my high school graduation because you were at a bar. You forgot my wedding anniversary. My wedding, Dad. You showed up drunk to the hospital when Marcus was born. Do you remember any of that?" "I was sick then, Emily. I was an alcoholic. But I've been sober for 5 years now. 5 years. I go to meetings 3 times a week. I have a sponsor. I've completely turned my life around." "Good for you," Emily said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You want a medal for doing what you should have been doing all along? For being the father you should have been when I actually needed you." The words hit Robert like physical blows. He felt his chest tighten, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I'm not asking for a medal. I'm asking for a chance. Just dinner. Just a few hours with my family." Emily glanced back into the house, then turned to face him fully. "You're not welcome here, Dad. Not this Christmas. Not any Christmas until I decide I'm ready to deal with you again. Derek's parents have been more like real parents to me than you ever were. They show up. They remember. They care." "I care, Emily. I love you more than." "Don't." She held up her hand. "Just don't. I can't do this right now. I have a house full of people who actually want to be around me. People who didn't abandon me emotionally for the first 30 years of my life." Robert felt tears threatening, but he refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not now." "Okay," he said quietly. "I understand." He didn't understand. He would never understand. But what else could he say? Emily started to close the door, then paused. "Dad, stop trying so hard. It's exhausting for both of us. When I'm ready, if I'm ever ready, I'll reach out. Until then, please just give me space." The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet evening. Robert stood there for a long moment, staring at the wreath on Emily's door. He could hear Christmas music starting inside. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on him. Please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We share real stories about real people, and your subscription helps us continue bringing these emotional journeys to you. ***. He walked back to his 2008 Honda Civic, its paint faded and spotted with rust. The presents sat in the trunk, still wrapped in cheerful paper covered with snowmen and reindeer. He wouldn't take them out. Not now. Robert sat in the driver's seat for several minutes, watching his breath fog the windshield. He thought about his ex-wife, Linda, who had left him 15 years ago. He thought about all the moments he'd missed because of the bottle. Soccer games. School plays. Birthday parties. The memories he didn't have haunted him more than the ones he did. Then, he did something unexpected. He smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally hit bottom and had nowhere to go but up. It was the smile of acceptance. The smile of surrender. "Okay," he said to his empty car. "Okay." He started the engine and pulled away from the curb, watching Emily's house shrink in his rearview mirror until the Christmas lights were just a distant glow. The drive back to Springfield was long and silent. Robert didn't turn on the radio. He just drove through the falling snow, watching the headlights of other cars heading toward warm homes and waiting families. When he finally pulled into the parking lot of his apartment complex at 11:47 p.m., the building looked particularly depressing. It was a 3-story brick structure built in the 1970s, surrounded by a chain-link fence. His apartment was on the second floor, number 2D. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchenette, and a living room barely big enough for a second-hand couch and a small television. This was what 5 years of sobriety had gotten him. A lonely apartment, a job as a night shift security guard at a warehouse, and a daughter who couldn't stand the sight of him. But at least he was sober. Robert climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every one of his 62 years in his knees and lower back. He unlocked his door and stepped into the darkness, not bothering to turn on the lights at first. He just stood there, letting his eyes adjust. His phone buzzed in his pocket. For a wild moment, he thought it might be Emily calling to apologize, to invite him back. But it was just a spam text about car insurance. He tossed his keys onto the small table by the door and walked to his bedroom. On his nightstand sat a framed photo, the only one he had of Emily from her childhood. She was 7 years old, sitting on his shoulders at a carnival, both of them laughing. He'd been sober that day. It was one of the good days, before the drinking had completely consumed him. "I'm sorry, baby girl," he whispered to the photo. "I'm so sorry." Robert changed into his pajamas, brushed his teeth, and climbed into bed. He set his phone on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling, listening to the couple in the apartment above him arguing about whose turn it was to take out the trash. Sleep didn't come easy, but eventually, exhaustion won. Drop a comment below telling us what city you're watching from. We love knowing where our viewers are located around the world. ***. Hashtag Chapter 2, The Silence and the Storm. Christmas Day came and went in a blur of silence. Robert worked a shift at the warehouse. Someone had to pull security on the holiday, and he'd volunteered. The extra holiday pay would help, and besides, what else did he have to do? The warehouse was cold and empty, filled with pallets of goods that would ship out after New Year's. He made his rounds every hour, checking doors and windows, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. His supervisor, Mike, had brought in leftover ham and potatoes from his family dinner. "Can't let you starve on Christmas, Rob," he'd said with a sympathetic smile. Mike was a good guy, mid-50s, a former alcoholic himself. He understood. "Thanks, Mike. Merry Christmas." "You okay, man? You seem quieter than usual." Robert shrugged. "Just another day, right?" Mike studied him for a moment. "You try to see your daughter?" "Yeah." "Didn't go well?" "You could say that." Mike clapped him on the shoulder. "Keep showing up, Rob. That's all you can do. Keep showing up, stay sober, and eventually the universe sorts itself out." Robert appreciated the sentiment, even if he didn't quite believe it. The day after Christmas, Robert slept until noon, a rare luxury. When he woke up, the apartment was cold. The heating in the building was unreliable at best. He made coffee in his small pot, the cheap kind that came in a red can, and sat at his kitchen table staring out the window at the gray December sky. He thought about calling Emily but decided against it. She'd asked for space. The least he could do was respect that, even if it killed him. Instead, he called his sponsor, George, a 70-year-old retired teacher who'd been sober for 23 years. "George? It's Rob." "Rob. Merry Christmas, my friend. How are you holding up?" Robert told him about Emily, about the closed door, and the cold words. George listened without interrupting, a skill he'd perfected over decades of AA meetings. "That's rough, Rob. Real rough. But you did the right thing. You showed up. You tried. And you didn't drink when she rejected you. That's huge, brother. Doesn't feel huge. Feels like I'm failing all over again. The only way you fail is if you pick up a bottle. Everything else? That's just life. Life is messy. Relationships are messy. But you're sober, and as long as you're sober, there's hope. They talked for another 30 minutes, and Robert felt marginally better when they hung up. George was right. Staying sober was the victory. Everything else was secondary. If this story is touching your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We create content that matters, and your support keeps us going. ****. That evening, Robert decided to go to a meeting. There was one at a church in downtown Springfield every night at 7 p.m. He bundled up against the cold and drove his Honda through streets still lined with Christmas decorations. The church basement was warm and smelled like coffee and old hymnals. About 15 people were there, sitting in a circle of metal folding chairs. Robert recognized most of them: Diane, Tom, Sarah, Marcus, a different Marcus than his grandson, and several others whose names he couldn't always remember. "Hey, Robert," Diane called out. She was in her early 40s, a former meth addict who'd been clean for 7 years. "Good to see you. Grab some coffee and have a seat." The meeting followed its usual pattern. Someone read from the big book, they went around sharing their experiences, and then they closed with the Serenity Prayer. When it was Robert's turn to share, he hesitated. "I'm Robert, and I'm an alcoholic." "Hi, Robert," the group responded in unison. "I've been sober for 5 years, 1 month, and 12 days. And 2 days ago, I drove to Chicago to see my daughter and my grandkids for Christmas. She told me I wasn't welcome. She told me to stop trying." His voice cracked slightly. "And you know what the worst part is? She's right to feel that way. I was a terrible father. I missed everything that mattered. I chose alcohol over her, over and over again. And now I'm paying the price." He paused, feeling the tears he'd been holding back finally starting to form. "But I didn't drink. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. I drove past 3 liquor stores on my way home, and every single one of them called to me. But I didn't stop. I came home, I went to bed, and I stayed sober. So, I guess that's something." "That's everything, Robert," George said from across the circle. He'd shown up after their phone call, knowing Robert might need the support. "That's everything." After the meeting, several people came up to hug him and offer encouragement. It helped. Not much, but some. Robert drove home feeling slightly less alone. He climbed the stairs to his apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The red light on his phone was blinking on the small table by the door. Voicemail. He picked up the phone and saw the notification. 58 missed calls. His heart stopped. 58 missed calls. All from Emily. The timestamp on the first one was from early that morning, around 6 a.m. The last one was from 20 minutes ago. With shaking hands, Robert unlocked his phone and accessed his voicemail. There were 17 new messages. He pressed play on the first one. Emily's voice was frantic, choked with tears. "Dad? Dad, please pick up. Please. I need you. Something's happened. Please, Dad, call me back. Please." What do you think happened? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. ****. Robert's hands trembled so badly, he nearly dropped the phone. He skipped through the next few messages, all variations of the same desperate plea. Emily's voice growing more panicked, more broken with each one. The most recent message was the longest. "Dad. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I said to you. I was cruel, and I was wrong, and I need you. Please, Dad." Derek's parents, they were in a car accident on their way home Christmas night. They're both in critical condition. Derek is falling apart. The kids are terrified. "I don't know what to do. I need my father. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please call me." The message ended. Robert stood in his dark apartment, phone clutched in his hand, tears streaming down his face. She needed him. After all these years, after all the rejection and anger and pain, his daughter needed him. His fingers fumbled as he pulled up Emily's contact and pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. Dad. Emily's voice was ragged, exhausted. Dad. Oh my God. Where have you been? I'm here, baby girl. I'm here. Tell me what's happening. Hashtag Chapter 3, Coming Home. Emily spoke in rapid, broken sentences, her words tumbling over each other as she tried to explain. Derek's parents, Susan and Michael, had left Emily's house around 9 p.m. on Christmas night after a lovely dinner. They were driving back to their home in Evanston, just a 20-minute trip. But on Lakeshore Drive, a drunk driver had run a red light and slammed into their car at nearly 60 miles per hour. They're both at Northwestern Memorial, Emily said, her voice shaking. Michael has a fractured skull and internal bleeding. Susan has a punctured lung and a broken pelvis. The doctors say, Dad, they say it's touch and go. They might not make it. Where are you right now? Robert asked, already grabbing his coat. I'm at the hospital. Derek's with his parents. The kids are at our house with our neighbor watching them, but Dad, they're scared. Sophie keeps asking when Grandma and Grandpa are coming back, and Marcus had a panic attack this afternoon. I can't. She broke down completely, sobbing into the phone. Listen to me, Emily, Robert said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there in 4 hours. Maybe less. I'm going to help you through this. Do you hear me? You're not alone. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry for what I said. You didn't deserve that. We'll talk about that later. Right now, I need you to take a deep breath. Can you do that for me? He heard her inhale shakily. Good. Now, have you eaten anything today? I don't think so. Okay. I want you to go to the hospital cafeteria and get something. Anything. A sandwich, some soup. You need to keep your strength up. Derek and the kids need you strong.
Can you do that? Yes. Okay.
Yes. I'll call you when I'm getting close to the city. Hold on, baby girl. I'm coming. Robert hung up and stood in his apartment for exactly 5 seconds, processing everything. Then he moved into action. He threw clothes into a duffel bag, enough for at least a week. He grabbed his toiletries, his medications, his phone charger. He filled a thermos with coffee and grabbed the leftover ham sandwich Mike had given him. Within 15 minutes, he was out the door and in his car, pulling out of the parking lot as snow began to fall. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an emotional story like this one. ***. The drive to Chicago was the longest and shortest 4 hours of Robert's life. His mind raced with possibilities, fears, and prayers to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. But he prayed anyway, because what else could he do? Please let them survive. Please let Emily be okay. Please let me be what she needs. He called Emily twice during the drive. The first time, she told him there had been no change in Susan and Michael's conditions. They were both in surgery. Derek was in the waiting room, catatonic with fear. The second time, her voice was slightly calmer. Dad, the neighbor needs to go home. Would you be willing to stay with Sophie and Marcus when you get here? Just until Derek and I can figure out what's happening. Of course, Robert said immediately. Give me your address. I'll go straight there. When Robert pulled up to Emily's house at 12:43 a.m., the neighborhood was dark and quiet. Christmas lights still twinkled on most of the houses, a cheerful contrast to the tragedy unfolding. He grabbed his duffel bag and walked to the front door, the same door that had been closed in his face just 3 days ago. This time, it opened immediately. The neighbor, a woman in her 50s named Patricia, greeted him with relief. You must be Emily's father. Thank God. Those poor children are finally asleep, but it took hours. Sophie cried herself to sleep asking for her mommy. Marcus is in his room. He won't talk to anyone. I'll take it from here, Robert said gently. Thank you for staying with them. Patricia squeezed his arm. Emily said you'd come. She said you always show up when it really matters. The words hit Robert like a punch to the gut. After everything, Emily still believed in him. At least a little. He locked the door behind Patricia and stood in the entryway of his daughter's beautiful home. Even in crisis, it was immaculate. Hardwood floors, elegant furniture, family photos on every wall. Photos that didn't include him. Robert walked quietly upstairs and peeked into Sophie's room first. She was 7 years old, curled up in a bed shaped like a castle, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Her face was tear-stained even in sleep. Marcus's room was next. At 11 years old, he was too old for stuffed animals and princess beds. His room was decorated with basketball posters and model airplanes. Robert knocked softly on the doorframe. "Marcus? Are you awake?" A small voice came from the darkness. "Who are you?" I'm your grandpa. Your mom's dad. She asked me to come stay with you and Sophie tonight." Silence. "Then, I remember you. You came to my birthday party when I was little. You brought me a remote control car." Robert's heart clenched. "You remember that?"
Yeah.
"Mom told you to leave because you smelled like alcohol. You cried in the driveway." The memory was a knife.
Yeah.
That was a bad day for me. I'm sorry you saw that. Are you still drunk?"
No.
"I haven't had a drink in 5 years." More silence. Then the sound of Marcus sitting up in bed. "Are Grandma Susan and Grandpa Michael going to die?" Robert wanted to lie, to comfort, to say everything would be okay. But Marcus deserved the truth. "I don't know, buddy. They're very hurt, but the doctors are doing everything they can. Your mom and dad are at the hospital with them right now." "I'm scared." "I know. It's okay to be scared. Will you stay? I don't want to be alone." Robert walked into the room and sat on the edge of Marcus's bed. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here all night. If you need anything at all, you just call for me, okay?" Marcus nodded, then surprised Robert by reaching out and grabbing his hand. His grip was tight, desperate. They sat like that for several minutes, grandfather and grandson, connected by fear and need. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your engagement helps us share more stories like this. ****. Eventually, Marcus lay back down, still holding Robert's hand. Within minutes, his breathing deepened into sleep. Robert carefully extracted his hand and tucked the blanket around his grandson. He kissed Marcus's forehead, the first time he'd ever done so, and whispered, "I've got you. I promise." He returned downstairs and made himself a cup of coffee in Emily's expensive espresso machine. Then he settled onto the couch, pulled out his phone, and waited. Emily called at 3:17 a.m.
Dad.
Her voice was exhausted but lighter. "Michael made it through surgery. His brain swelling is going down. The doctors say he has a good chance now. Thank God." "And Susan?" "Still in surgery, but they're optimistic. Dad, I think they're going to make it." Robert closed his eyes and sent up another prayer of gratitude. "That's wonderful news, sweetheart. How's Derek?" "He's a mess, but he's holding on. We're going to stay here for a few more hours, then I'll come home to shower and see the kids." "How are they?" "Sophie's asleep. Marcus and I had a talk. He's scared, but he's okay. We're okay." Emily's voice broke. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be." The sun rose on December 27th with a pale winter light that filtered through Emily's living room windows. Robert had dozed on and off throughout the night, jerking awake at every small sound, making sure the kids were okay. At 7:30 a.m., he heard small footsteps on the stairs. Sophie appeared in her princess pajamas, clutching her rabbit, her eyes wide and red. "Where's Mommy?" she asked, her voice tiny. "Mommy's at the hospital with Daddy. She'll be home soon. Are you hungry? I can make you breakfast." Sophie studied him suspiciously. "Who are you?" "I'm your grandpa Robert. Your mom's daddy." "I don't know you." "I know. But I'd like you to know me, if that's okay." She considered this. "Can you make pancakes?" Robert smiled. "I can definitely make pancakes." They went to the kitchen together and Robert found the ingredients. As he mixed the batter, Sophie sat at the kitchen island watching him carefully. Grandma Susan makes pancakes with chocolate chips, she said. Then that's what we'll do. Can you help me find the chocolate chips? Working together, they made a plate of chocolate chip pancakes. Marcus came downstairs just as Robert was flipping the last one. The three of them sat at the table together, a strange, improvised family, eating breakfast in silence. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We share powerful, real-life stories every week, and your subscription means the world to us. Asterisk, asterisk. Are they really going to be okay? Sophie asked suddenly, her eyes filling with tears. Grandma and Grandpa? Robert set down his fork and looked at both children. The doctors think so. They're very strong, and they're getting the best care possible. But it's going to take time for them to get better. Can we visit them? Marcus asked. That's up to your mom and dad. But I bet they'd love to hear from you. Maybe we could make them cards today? Something cheerful to put in their hospital rooms. Both kids nodded eagerly, grateful for something to do. They spent the morning creating elaborate get-well cards with crayons, markers, and stickers. Robert helped them write messages. Get better soon, Grandma. I love you. Sophie. We need you to come home.
Please get well.
Love, Marcus. Emily arrived home at 11 a.m., looking exhausted but relieved. The moment the kids saw her, they ran into her arms, all three of them dissolving into tears and hugs. Robert hung back, giving them space. But Emily looked up at him over the children's heads, and the expression on her face said everything. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I love you. Later that afternoon, after Emily had showered and napped for a few hours, she and Robert sat in the kitchen while the kids watched a movie in the living room. Susan's out of surgery, Emily said. She's stable. Michael's awake. They're both going to make it, Dad. It's a miracle. That's wonderful news, sweetheart. Emily wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, staring into it. I was so horrible to you on Christmas Eve. You were honest. I was cruel. You've been trying, Dad. I know you have. And I've been holding on to my anger for so long that I couldn't see it. When this happened, when I thought I might lose Derek's parents, all I could think was that I didn't want to lose you too. That I already had, and it was my fault. Emily, you have every right to be angry with me. I was a terrible father. I missed everything. But you're here now. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. You're here. When I called, you came. No hesitation, no conditions. You just came. And you took care of my kids like they were the most important people in the world.
They are.
You are. Emily reached across the table and took his hand. I want you in our lives, Dad. Really in our lives. Not just Christmas cards and birthday calls. I want the kids to know their grandfather. I want my dad back. Robert couldn't speak. The emotions were too overwhelming. He just squeezed her hand and nodded. I can't promise it'll be perfect, Emily continued. I'm still working through a lot of stuff. Maybe we should try some family therapy? But I want to try. If you're willing. I'm willing, Robert managed to say. I'm so willing, baby girl. They sat together in the kitchen, holding hands across the table, as the winter sun cast long shadows across the floor. Drop a comment and tell us what you think about Robert's journey. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Asterisk, asterisk. Epilogue. 6 months later, Robert Harrison stood in the backyard of Emily's home in Lincoln Park, watching his grandchildren play on the swing set. It was a beautiful June afternoon, warm and clear, with the smell of burgers cooking on the grill. Derek was manning the grill, recovered from the trauma of nearly losing his parents. Susan and Michael were there too, still healing but improving every day. They sat in lawn chairs, holding hands, grateful to be alive. Emily came up beside Robert and handed him a beer, non-alcoholic. She'd made sure of that, and leaned against his shoulder. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Happy Father's Day to you too, he said to Derek with a smile. This was his third Sunday dinner at Emily's house since the accident. They'd started having family therapy in March, working through decades of hurt and resentment. It wasn't easy. There were still hard conversations and difficult moments. But they were trying. Robert had even moved to Chicago 2 months ago, finding a small apartment in a neighborhood close enough to visit regularly, but far enough to give everyone space. He'd gotten a new job doing security at a museum. The pay was better, and the hours were more reasonable. Sophie ran up to him, breathless and laughing. "Grandpa, come push me on the swing." "Absolutely," Robert said, setting down his drink. As he pushed Sophie higher and higher, listening to her squeals of delight, Robert thought about that Christmas Eve. About standing on this very porch, being told he wasn't welcome. He thought about the 58 missed calls that changed everything. He thought about how sometimes life gives you a second chance when you least expect it. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you're sober enough and strong enough to take it. "Higher, Grandpa. Higher." "You got it, sweetie." He pushed her higher, watching her soar against the blue sky, and he smiled. A real smile this time. The smile of a man who had come home.